This started as a talk on readiness and how we know when we're ready and what are the kinds of things we need to do and where does that go in the life cycle. And it turned into this. I don't know how this happens. It happens all the time. So let's talk about software or other project life cycle. And the part I'm super interested in for this one, I think, will probably be the build, test, check, adapt cycle in the right-hand side. We're going to drop into that. And that's a variation on plan, do, check, act, and plan, do, study, act, which are classic. I probably shouldn't invent my own, but I did here. And it's going to be build, test, check, adapt, right? And I think this is maybe more tailored to software than the others, but the others are pretty famous. I have a 30-year-old t-shirt somewhere. So we start off with, we have an idea, also known as we have an idea. And what we do here is hopefully at this point we're like, hey, we have some goals. So that means we have some key performance indicators that'll tell us whether this is successful, other than a lot of people use it because that could just burn a bunch of money. And then we drop into a high level design. And these designs at this point could be deep or shallow. Usually it's like a sanity check at this point. Don't do anything stupid. Hey, do we have any obvious governance or privacy thing? It could be that we're moving money and we could be like one of these companies that didn't worry about it and then had to worry about it, or we can think about it a little up front. And then we drop into initial development, and usually it's a lot of times at large companies this could take a while, but sometimes it's also half-baked, right? We kind of have a high-level design, we have this idea, but a lot of times there's no key performance indicators, like what's the metric of success, right? So we'll drop into initial development, and then we go into the build phase of this. Really, initial development a lot of times is a prototype and demo, but I ran out of space. And so here we go into an iterative cycle of run and test and design develop. We run and test this thing with people, and then we look at what they thought about it, and we do some design and development till we get something that we think is ready to be in front of customers in some form. Or customers, and by customers, it could be users, it could be volunteers, it could be anything, right? It could be game users. And so we probably at this point want to do some initial readiness. Hey, looking back at the non-functional requirements or the other things, are we good to go? Is this going to cause a leak? Is it going to be some other issue? And we go through some readiness phase. Now, we will have done some kind of pre-checks when we did the high-level design, hopefully. And then we can rock, right, and get this thing out in front of consumers. So we went through the initial build phase, and then we really, I'm going to call it test, because the reality is the ultimate test is what the consumers of the thing or the process that we're using, what they think about it, not necessarily what our dry runs did. So we go into the test phase of this, and if we're agile with a small a, we can get through this pretty quick. If we were smart, and we built in measuring monitors and measures. A lot of times people forget to do that, and we're like, well, it didn't die. Nobody's complaining. It must be good. But let's pretend that we did, took those KPIs, and as we played with this, people iterated on that a little bit and improved it, and we added business observations. We added technical observations and non-functional. So what do I mean by that? The business metrics would be how are the users behaving? What's the drop-off rate? What kind of problems do they have? How many whine? How many drop into chat? How many go onto Reddit and complain, right? And then, or how many are amazingly enthused and brag about it somewhere, right? And then we have some technical metrics like, are we having problems? Are we overloaded? Are there failure points? Are we scale? Those kinds of things. And then we have other non-functional requirements that we really want to observe to make sure, are we having any data issues? Are we dropping things on the floor? Are we losing things? Can we track end to end that we process this thing? And there are variations on this. Sometimes you just don't care, right, on some of these. But at that point, what we're going to do is we're going to adjust and act, right? We're going to take the metrics that we put together and we're going to feed those in with new features, right? And some of these will drive new features from a business point of view, and some of them may drive non-functional features. And then we're going to go into hopefully a relatively short, but another iteration cycle where we do some design develop, and then we run and test it. And we're going to go through that a little bit to make sure it looks good. So that's the adapt phase, right? So we went into build originally, and then we tested this thing. Really, we let people use it. That's how we're testing it. I'm not counting the development test. I'm talking about the global life cycle. The consumers are the test, right? And then if we were smart enough to put in enough metrics and monitors, the observability triangle, then we can take those metrics plus new functionality, and we can adapt the existing design and go out and build this thing again, right? So that, in a lot of ways, is the life cycle, right? The important part is to get the initial phase correct, short as possible, justify that this is a reasonable idea, that we have an idea where the holes are going to be, either from a business functionality point of view or from data protection or compliance. You can have all kinds of things. That we don't lose anything, that we didn't steal any data from somewhere else we shouldn't have. Not looking at you at AI at all. And then we get into this loop, right? And I think the hard part here is a lot of people really don't see any discipline, or they don't think about it. Maybe they're a really smart team and they don't have to. I'm not that smart. What we need to do, though, is just remember that we're going to do this build, test, check, adapt, right? We build something, we test it with people. If we put in the right metrics, we can check and see what's happening. If we don't, then checking what's happening is really hard, and we just kind of blind, right? We're just going to not adapt at all. We're just going to keep layering on, and you don't know whether that's a good idea. So that's really what I wanted to talk about, was kind of this project, this phased life cycle, not taking into account Agile or any other method or methodology, but the idea that we have some brilliant idea that we come up with, and how do we drop into that, what it needs to be layered on top of that, how can we do that with discipline and with a larceny, is that it? And then what does this build, test, check, adapt cycle look for us? If we don't have the observation, we can't check and adapt, right? We just kind of layer in. And so that's it. I hope that's useful. If not, I'm sure people will leave notes. They always do. And if it is, leave notes too. And sometime I'll get back to the PDCA and the PDSA version of this. But that's it. Have a great day.